Hi, we're Maddie and Nico, and we are turning this empty cargo van into this tiny home on wheels. We have no building experience, but we'll take you along each step as we transform our 2020 Ford Transit van. Hi guys, today is an exciting day because we are starting our lower cabinets. It's also my birthday.
Happy birthday.
But yeah, so today we're getting started on cutting out our pieces for the lower cabinets. So here is our first cabinet we're going to build. It holds our fridge, so it is the most deep cabinet. Our other cabinets over here will be a little more narrow, but it's really short because we're just making it to cover this because we want a pretty open area. There will be a bench here that attaches onto that. So I kind of got a basic drawing here. This is from the side of our cabinet. Even though we think that the width is going to just be about 22.5 inches, we're going to cut it at 23.
So we just did our first cut for our lower cabinets. I'll show you what we're working with. This is 36 tall and then 23.5 in width. This is going to sit at 22.5. We left a little leeway, about an inch, for this curve right here. As you can see, the van walls are curved once again. Nothing is straight in this van. So what I'm going to do is I got my scribe. It's a 3/4 block with a pencil attached. Just going to get the curve right here. Scribing. So yeah, as you can see, curves up at the top a lot, stays fairly consistent on the bottom. So yeah, I'm going to jigsaw out that curve so it sits flush with the wall, and then we'll go from there.
Nico's carved it so it's flush with the wall. Everything looks good there. We're just going to take off 3/4 inches from this board because we will be putting a face frame on this cabinet, and we want the fridge to be flush with the face frame. And I don't really want it to stick out more into the hallway than it has to, and we've already planned for enough space between the fridge and the wall here that's an inch between it and the wall, and then we're going to have vents on either side. So we like the position of it, but in order for it to be flush when we make the cabinet, we just need to cut off 3/4 of the inch, which is the thickness of a 1x2, which is what we use for the face frame. All right, so now we cut both sides of our fridge cabinet. This side, we have a little bit of a weird thing going on. We kind of debated this for a while, not even to mention how to finish this side of the wall. That's a whole nother thing that we will also have to address. But basically for this side of the cabinet, it's going to be a little bit wider where we have our bench cabinet attaching to it, and then this is more narrower at the top because we want the top part to be the same width as the wall, because that's the same width as this other part of the cabinet. And then it gets wider at the bench, and the reason for that is because, let me move this out of the way, you'll be able to see it a little better. The reason for that is because of this area. So this piece of our floor comes out a little bit further than where our wall ends. Sorry, there's a bunch of wires as well. So it's about that much of a distance, and that's how big our bench comes up to that height. So it's still going to look like two separate cabinets right up against each other, but rather than make two walls at different widths, they're just sharing one wall, similar to our upper cabinet with the two different depths. Anyways, we are working on that. Nico's cutting out our toe kick, and then I cut these to use in between to attach these two pieces together. Okay, so now we have it where the front of the cabinet is facing down. This is the top of the cabinet here, where these two cross bars are, and we're squaring it up, and then we're gluing them. We're gonna screw them together so the walls are together. And then it'll really start to look like a cabinet. Here it is so far. Wow. Hi everyone, it's a new day. We are still working on our fridge cabinet. We want something to cover this area behind the cabinet. So that way when you're looking at our cabinet from the back side, from outside the door, it looks like it's one solid piece, but that way we don't have to fill in the whole back of the cabinet because that adds a decent amount of weight.
And restricts airflow.
So now we're going to attach it to the cabinet, and then we're going to put these cross beams. The blue tape is marking where our 1x4s, 1x3s in the wall back there, and that we put blue tape to mark where that is. You can kind of also see it from the edge, but highly suggest before you cover everything with your walls that you take note of where your beams are from your framing. So here's our cabinet. We've put these back things, I don't know, nailers, you might call them, on our cabinet to screw it into the wall. Now we're just working on building a platform for our fridge to sit on. This piece of wood we've cut out, it's the dimensions of the inside of the cabinet. And then we've also cut from scrap. These are 4.5 inches tall. This is to lift this platform up. That's what our fridge will sit on. We think even though it's 1/2 inch, it should be fine. The fridge weight is distributed onto its 4 little feet, which are relatively close to the edges anyways. So we're gonna go ahead and attach these pieces with some glue and nails to the sides of the cabinet, and then we will attach this on top of them, sitting on top of them. We're gonna build our face frame for the fridge cabinet. We have our pieces of wood. Now we just need to assemble the frame and then attach it to the cabinet. And now we have a face frame on our cabinet.
So one thing we haven't done to our fridge cabinet, which is right here, is we need to make some vents for the fridge airflow, make it more efficient. So I'm just kind of devising a plan right now. I want it to be nice and even, have straight lines. And the best way I could think of is to use the router here. So I just drew what my vent will be. And I have a series of clamps. Basically, I'm gonna drill a hole right here and then use these. I have a flush router bit. So once I drill a hole, I can drop that down in. And then basically my guide I set up is right up in here, so it's going to run along this line, give me a nice smooth straight line. And then this one here is my bottom guide, so the edge of the router will hit that. So first I'm going to drill a hole for the router to get down into. I take this router bit, I don't know if you can see it, has a ball bearing at the end. Basically that's going to roll on my guide, and the top piece is going to cut a nice straight line. Okay, just got done routing this out. The plan is to put some rattan, I think it's called. Just staple it back here, make it nice. Paint the insides of this too.
Hi guys, so what we've got going on here in the van right now took a bit of thought because we're trying to figure out our point of reference for our lines for our cabinets, because we want our cabinets to line up nicely and everything kind of look straight. Here in the van, kind of hard to see, here's this line. It doesn't look straight when you compare it to like this line from the seam of the paper, but back here we first drew this line, and from that line we used a square to get this angle here to make a square, and then we drew this line all the way using a straight edge all the way down to there. So that will be the line of our cabinets in relation to the wall. We already have our first wall piece here, and then our next wall piece. We just have to make sure everything lines up to this line, and then everything will be square in the front and should fit nicely up against the back wall of our cabinets. So this is our first dry fitting of the oven cabinet, which will live right here. Show you guys closer. Here it is. Looks very simple when you put the oven on it. But that's the first part of this 3-section cabinet.
Just so you know, if you need to copy any shape, a router with a flush trim bit is the way to do it. Super easy. You do get super dusty, but that's okay.
So our plans have changed again, which is the story of this van. We have our oven cabinet here, and what we're going to be doing is we're making a really skinny pantry cabinet. So this is about 5 inches wide. We have a really long vertical pantry drawer that's going to go right here, right between our oven and our sink cabinet, and our sink cabinet will be the next one over that we will start attaching onto the whole thing after that. Okay, we just finished gluing and screwing together this cabinet, so we're going to bring it into the van for a dry fit.
Alright guys, it's looking like a kitchen. Hey guys, it's a new day. We got this far in our cabinet, and now we're going to build this side. I just cut this piece, gonna make another one, screw it down here, attach it, screw and glue. All right, we just got our cabinets done. And here's what it looks like. We're just doing a dry fit right now.
Drink every time we say dry fit.
Yeah, take a shot every time we say dry fit. It's pretty good. It still feels pretty spacious in here. We do have to put a bench seat right here, which will kind of close off this wall, but not too 100%. Much. But yeah, it's looking great.
Right now we are about to build the face frames for our lower cabinets. We went to Home Depot and picked up some crappy wood. The nicer version of...
This is nice shit.
Of the crappy wood. It's Home Depot, how good can it be? 67 and 7/16. So our sink is a farmhouse style, which means it's going to be sitting flush with the countertop, the bottom of the countertop, and then the sides we just need to figure out exactly what that shape is because it curves a little bit. So we're gonna take a tool and figure that out.
So basically we're gonna take the scribe off this and then put it on a cardboard, cut the cardboard, make sure that fits, and then put that on probably a 1x3 and then just cut it out.
We are about to start assembling our face frames for our lower cabinets. Finally got all of our pieces right. We've double checked our math. So if we make everything nice and square, it should all add up and fit perfectly onto the face of our cabinet. So let's get started.
All right, we just finished our face frame. I did this while Maddie pocket holed the insides of this carcass, so now we can slap face frame onto this.
One thing that we have to do before we can attach the face frame is shave off these corners of this shelf that our sink sits on, because for some reason, even though we assembled it with the face of our cabinets down to try and make everything nice and even in the front of our cabinets, it's still sticking out like a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 even, maybe an 1/8 of an inch out the front. So we're gonna sand that off. Okay, we've done it. We've put the face frame on the cabinet. We'll stand it up for you. Here it is, looking pretty good.
Check it out. It's so nice and flush when you open this. Look at that.
Up. Ooh.
Boom.
Nice, beautiful.
Just like how we planned.
Just
it's
as
crazy.
We planned. Yeah, we're pretty happy with the results so far. We need to get it painted, and we're gonna build some drawers and stuff. We also need to put some more face frames here in between where the drawers will be. We just hadn't determined how big we wanted those drawers yet, so we'll figure that out, and we need to buy some more wood anyways. So one thing that we realized after test fitting our lower cabinet in the van, we made this part of the frame just equal with this, with the idea that then we could just put our drawer slides directly on this wood and they could slide out just fine without having to bump them out to get around a face frame. However, the problem is like this side is gonna be flush with the wall underneath our bed. So if we were to make a drawer that comes and meets this edge, if we pull it out, it would be rubbing against the wood that goes along the bed edge. So our plan is we have this other piece of wood that we used to cut from this, and we're just gonna pop that back in there and wood fill it, nail it, glue it together, so that way there is a face frame on this side at least, and then we will just have to bump out our drawer slides, which is fine. Today we are starting our drawers and door faces for our cabinets. So I'm just gonna explain kind of how we are calculating our measurements. I took the measurement of this whole space, including both our rails. So we got 23¼ is our distance here for our entire cabinet. Then I subtracted 1.5 inches, so that way both these doors will meet halfway on both of the stiles here. And then we subtract 1/8 of an inch, because that's the standard gap you want between two doors, particularly two doors that aren't meeting on another stile. So we subtracted 1/8 of an inch, divided by 2, and then that's how we got the width for each of the doors there, which you can see by my drawing, very rudimentary, is 10 13/16.
So we were really struggling to get an even, consistent little groove in our little test pieces. And part of the reason is because some of these pieces are not completely even. So there might be like a tiny little millimeter or something like that. The problem is when you put it through with the last method we were doing, you do one side and then you flip it and then do the other side. So whatever the difference between these two pieces is now doubled because you're hitting it twice. So what we did is basically made a dado out of just 2 regular saw blades, and it pretty much matches our piece. So now, even if these are slightly different, we're not doing a double pass because now the thickness of our blade is this size. So we can just do one pass and then we're good.
The main difference is that the width of the cut is not going to change anymore, whereas it was before when you do 2 passes based on the thickness of your wood. So one thing that we're doing now is we are marking the pieces of wood where we want the back side to be, so not the face piece, because some of these wood pieces have dings in them. This one has like a knot sticking out on that side, that sort of thing. So that way we can keep track of that, and that means we'll do that side, like we'll always do that on the left side of the pass for each of these. So that way when we put it all together, just in case we are not dead center cutting this piece of wood, they'll all line up together nice and evenly. So we have now cut and assembled all of our doors and drawer fronts. We need to sand and finish everything before we go to painting, but here's basically how everything's gonna go. We also need to cut still this one and this top one. We're not doing shaker style for those. We have this piece of poplar that we just need to cut to size. So that's a bit simpler. It just would look too weird to do the shaker style with like a very thin middle board. That's what we're doing for that and that small drawer there. But yeah, we got 2 doors that'll open right there. Pull out pantry. This one is a door that'll swing that way underneath our sink. And then these are 3 drawers. So now that we have all of our drawer faces and doors fully built, I'm going to use some of this plastic wood to fill any imperfections and cracks, and then sand everything down, and kind of just today we're prepping everything to be ready to be painted. I am taking our lower cabinet doors and I'm lining them up where we want, and then I'm going in and I'm marking where the 2 holes go. I know this isn't like the official way to figure out where these holes are supposed to be. This seemed like an easier way. Hopefully it all works out. And voila, we have some marks where the holes need to be drilled. Okay, and then we'll try screwing this door on just to test and make sure it works. One tip is, if you're doing this method where you're just marking your holes, before you drill the hole, I would suggest you take off the cabinet side of the hinge and you put it up there and then drill the hole. Just because from my marks, I don't know, maybe it's the way I drilled, maybe it's the way I marked, but they were just slightly off and like pulling the hinge closer out this way. So there we have it. 2 really sawdusty doors are in place with their hinges, and I'm very happy with how they look. Gonna go and do the big guy now. So for this door, since it doesn't open up from 2 sides, it just opens from the one side, it's kind of impossible to trace the holes when the door is closed unless you can get behind your cabinet like we can. And so Nico's gonna hold the door in place on the front, and then I'm gonna trace it from behind. Hello from the future. Thank you for watching part 1 of our lower cabinet video. In part 2, we will go over painting the cabinets, installing them, and installing our appliances as well. This is the lessons learned part of our video where we go over everything that we learned in the process of building out this part of our van. We only have a couple things on the list for part 1. First on the list is to make sure that you pay attention to how your drawers are opening and your cabinets are opening, so that way none of them are going to rub up against other cabinet doors or hit the hardware when you install it. You saw in our video we had to add in a little bit extra of the face frame back in to accommodate the drawers. So it's just something to think about. I recommend drawing out a picture if you can and being as detailed as possible with that.
Next up is to read up on your appliance clearances. For the oven, something we didn't show is on the back side, it requires a certain gap between the wall and the oven for some airflow. That way it doesn't get too hot on the wall and start a fire. As for the fridge, we probably could have used a little bit of a more gap behind the fridge, or maybe even just more vent space. Something I didn't show in the video as well is I routed out on this side of the fridge. There's little strips for more airflow. I think I could have widened those a little bit more and then also made this vent right here that you saw me cut just a little bit bigger, because on a really hot day the fridge does tend to work pretty hard and you can feel the cabinet actually heat up. So it's just something to think about. You definitely want a lot of airflow with a fridge, so that's lesson 2.
For the third tip that we have is to just leave a little bit of a gap in your face frame around your sink if you're doing your sink in the same way we are, which is just a like farmhouse style sink sitting on the cabinet. So the reason is so that way it doesn't squeak as much, because sometimes the sides of it will rub on the sink and squeak. But you don't want too much of a gap either, because you don't want it to look spacious there, I guess. So it's just kind of something we deal with. We've put a little piece of cardboard in there to stop squeaking, and that has helped. But yeah, squeaks are an ongoing problem.
And one thing to note about our sink is it was really hard to find a farmhouse style sink that's van sized, so we ended up buying a bathroom sink that we used for our kitchen sink. So yeah.
And all those products will be linked down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please give it a like and a comment down below and subscribe to our channel. We're coming out with part 2 on some Sunday. Who knows when?